Wetlands are areas where water covers the soil or is present all year round or in various periods of time during the year, including during the growing season, either on or near the soil surface. Water saturation or hydrology largely determines the growth of the soil and the types of populations of plants and animals living in and on the soil. Wetlands can provide support for both aquatic and terrestrial species. The prolonged presence of water creates conditions that promote the growth of specially adapted plants or hydrophytes and the development of characteristic wetland soils. According to the Ramsar classification system of wetlands, wetland ecosystems can be classified into three categories: marine or coastal wetlands, inland wetlands, and man-made wetlands. Marine or coastal wetlands can be found along coastlines where there is constant subjection to the ebb and flow of tides. Since these wetlands are found along coastlines, the waters affecting coastal wetlands are a mixture of fresh and salt. Thus, salinity is one of the major factors affecting coastal wetlands alongside temperature and currents. Some examples of these wetlands are seagrass beds, beaches, rocky shores, salt marsh, and mangroves. Unlike marine and coastal wetlands, inland wetlands are not subjected to constant tidal waters. They are found alongside rivers and streams, in isolated depressions surrounded by dry land where precipitation sufficiently saturates the soil, and in other low-lying areas where the groundwater intercepts the soil surface. Most inland wetlands are seasonal, since their source of water are dependent on the amount of precipitation occurring on their locations. Some examples are alpine wetlands, tundra wetlands, marsh, and swamps. Man-made wetlands differ from coastal and inland wetlands since they are constructed by humans for purposes such as water storage, irrigation, and agriculture. Some examples of man-made wetlands are fish ponds, rice fields, reservoirs, oxidation basins, and drainage canals. There are biotic and abiotic factors that influence wetland ecosystems, such as oxygen availability, water, and wetland communities and ecosystem. Inundation or saturation of wetland soils leads to anaerobic conditions being formed as oxygen is depleted faster than diffusion can replace it. Depending on other soil conditions, such as temperature and microbial respiration rates, the rate of oxygen loss in flooded soils may vary. Small, oxidized layers of soil can persist on or around the surface of most wetlands. The prevalence of anaerobic conditions in wetlands has a tremendous impact on their biogeochemistry, with significant implications for transformations of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, iron, manganese, and sulfur. Wetlands, depending on inflows, outflows, and internal cycling rates, can function as sources, sinks, or transformers of these materials. Nitrogen cycle is one of the most important biogeochemical cycles in wetlands, and while potential transformations are not unique to wetlands, the dominance of anaerobic transformations distinguishes wetlands from other ecosystems. One such anaerobic transformation is denitrification, a microbial process where nitrate is lost to the atmosphere through conversion into nitrogen gas or nitrous oxide. Agriculture or other activities that increase nutrient loading, leading to changes in ecosystem structure and function, dramatically alter nutrient availability in many wetlands. Through processes like denitrification and plant uptake, wetlands can help remove some of this excess nitrogen introduced to wetland and aquatic ecosystems. Water movement, distribution, and quality are the primary factors that affect the structure and function of wetlands. To be classified as a wetland, the presence of water must contribute to the formation of hydric soils that are formed under flooded or saturated conditions that persist long enough during the growing season to develop anaerobic conditions. Water conditions in wetlands can vary greatly in terms of timing and length of surface water flooding, as well as seasonal flood patterns. The physiochemistry of wetlands can be influenced by flooding in different ways. Water can introduce or remove sediments, salts, nutrients, or other materials from wetlands, thus affecting their soil and water chemistry. Hydrology also affects wetland ecosystem structures and function through its effect on species resources, productivity, accumulation levels of organic matter, and nutrient cycling. It can limit the abundance of species in areas subject to long-term flooding while improving it in areas with variable or pulsing hydro period. Likewise, in permanently flooded, polluted, or drained wetlands, productivity is typically lower than in slow-flowing or seasonally flooded wetlands. The anaerobic conditions produced under these flooded or inundated conditions also restrict levels of decomposition, thereby encouraging accumulation of organic matter in soils and may alter the reduction-oxidation reactions, regulating nutrient transformations in wetland soils. Because of the predominance of water and anaerobic conditions in wetlands, the organisms living there, especially rooted plants, often exhibit remarkable adaptations to deal with flood stresses. Such adaptations, including pressurized gas flow, oxidized root zones, and anaerobic breathing, enable wetland plants to remain productive under otherwise stressful conditions, making wetlands one of the world's most efficient ecosystems. In turn, this high primary production supports high secondary production rates, rates that may exceed those of Earth's ecosystems. There are wetlands along gradients of soil moisture, with lower elevations of wetter soils and higher elevations of drier soils. In response to this environmental gradient, wetland plant communities develop primarily on the basis of their individual capacity to tolerate flooding and anaerobic soils, but also in response to biotic interactions with other species. Establishment of plant species along an environmental gradient can lead to sharp patterns of plant zoning, as can be seen in coastal wetlands, where species divide in response to variations in flooding and salinity along an elevation gradient. The development of these active and often diverse plant communities fuels complex food webs that sustain not only microbial communities through broad inputs of detritus to wetland soils, but also diverse animal communities that use wetlands for part or all of their lives. Human and natural disturbances are known to negatively affect various locations and activities, and wetland ecosystems are no exception towards these disturbances. Humans affect wetland ecosystems by using them to store and treat pollutants and through constant land development and clearing, thus causing negative impacts towards the quality and function of wetlands. Natural impacts such as sea level rise will especially affect marine or coastal wetlands through eliminating present marine or coastal wetlands. However, as coastal wetlands are being eliminated, new coastal wetlands would also emerge. By holding water much like a sponge, wetlands prevent flooding. Through this, wetlands help sustain natural river levels, clean and purify surface water. During storms and whenever water levels are high, wetlands accept water, then slowly release water when water levels are low. Wetlands also release vegetative matter into rivers that help feed rivers with fish. For migration or reproduction, most animals living in other environments use wetlands. Herons nest in large old trees, for example, but need shallow areas to wait for fish and aquatic life. In upland areas, amphibians sometimes forage, then return to the water to sleep and reproduce. While wetlands are truly unique, they should not be regarded as an isolated and independent ecosystem. Wetlands, on the opposite, are important for the health of all other biomes and for animals and people everywhere.